to that huge story that broke last week. As Deputy Prime Minister and Defence Minister, I've got to ask you about our nation's most decorated soldier, Ben Roberts-Smith. It's a long way from that to what we're seeing now, where a judge has found that it was truthful, those reports that he had murdered unarmed civilians, committed war crimes. How much does this diminish the SAS and the ADF?
Well, firstly, I obviously understand the interest that people have in this story, and obviously understand that it will be evoking a lot of feelings around the country. At the end of the day, this was a civil matter between two private parties, and the government, or the Commonwealth, was a witness in the case, but it was not a party to the case, and so it's obviously not appropriate for me to talk about that case, and the parties to it still have rights in respect of the decision that has been made. I think what I would say, putting the case to one side, is that the Brereton Report was a remarkable document and a remarkable piece of work. It really did seek to have Australia hold itself to account against the highest standards. The Brereton Report has offered the nation an opportunity, and we as a government are very clear that we want to do everything within our power to implement the recommendations of the report to the fullest extent. And that's the path that we will walk, and that's actually the path which in our view means that the standing of our Defence Forces, the standing of the SAS and elements of it, but actually the standing of the nation is maintained.
Are you worried about the impact of this scandal on morale within the ADF? Is that a concern to you?
Well, this has been, the Brereton Report came out some time ago, and obviously, so this is years old, is the point I'm trying to make. It is important, obviously, that we maintain morale.
It's years old, but it's back very much in the public eye. And for uniformed officers and soldiers and sailors, it'd be a difficult time for many of them.
I completely understand that, and I think that's right. This will be evoking a lot of feelings. But it is why I'd make the point that the Brereton Report offers us a way forward, and it offers us an opportunity to meet the highest standards as a defence force and as a country, and that's what we need to embrace. And we need to embrace that, and certainly from the government's point of view, through the fullest implementation that we can achieve of the recommendations of the Brereton Report.
Are you concerned that some of our partners, our allies, might be less willing to work with our SAS, as the US Defence Attaché warned General Campbell only a couple of years ago off the back of the Brereton Report?
Look, I'm not, and I don't say that lightly. Obviously, I saw what came out in Senate estimates last week. What came out in Senate estimates last week, which you've referred to, obviously, were events which occurred under the former government. The thing, again, that I'd say is that since we're coming to office, we've had an intense engagement with the United States, as you can see in all the announcements that we've made over the course of the last 12 months. This has never been raised with me as an issue by the United States, and I am satisfied that the ability of our Defence Force to work with the United States Defence Forces, including the SAS, is absolutely there. So I am very confident looking forward that we're able to work to the fullest extent with the US Defence Forces, and I'm sure that would be the case with other Defence Forces.
We're at the Shangri-La Dialogue. It's the preeminent forum for defence and strategy. Are you worried about how this episode damages our ADF reputation here in the region?
Well, again, I think the critical answer to that question is Brereton and the report that he did and the significance of it. I mean, obviously, the allegations contained in the Brereton Report are deeply serious. I mean, I'm completely aware of that. But the Brereton Report is Australia holding itself to account, and it is in historical terms, a genuinely remarkable piece of work, which is why it's so important in terms of navigating this episode and this moment in history that governments are implementing his report to the fullest extent that we can, and that's definitely our intent.
Do you think the Australian War Memorial should pull the tributes to Ben Roberts-Smith?
Well, again, that's a matter for the War Memorial, and I'll leave that to them. And again, I just emphasise that whilst there's been a lot of attention over the course of the last week, and I can understand why there has been that, it is at the end of the day a civil case between private parties. But that's ultimately a question for the War Memorial. From the government's point of view, where I think we relevantly engage here is in relation to the Brereton Report.
Yeah,
and
because you're right, it is a civil case, but we can expect other movements now from the Federal Police, from the Office of the Special Investigator. It's a fluid situation.
Well, what the Brereton Report has done has set up a process by which material can be investigated and then handed over for prosecution. And without speaking about individuals, that's the process that will now ensue. But that was the case before we received the judgment last week, and that was in train. But again, it's why it's so important, amidst all the noise, that we do everything we can to implement the full recommendations of the Brereton Report, and that's where our commitment lies.
And you're going to back the General in pulling those medals, I know it was overturned by the former Defence Minister, Mr Dutton, when the Coalition was in office, but in terms of those citations, will you back General Campbell on that, 100%?
Well, I could clearly give my full confidence to the Chief of the Defence Force. You can see that in the fact that we extended the Chief of the Defence Force's tenure this time last year in coming to office. But the process that the Chief of the Defence Force has gone through in relation to command accountability, again, is fulfilling one of the recommendations of the Brereton Report. Now, he's done his work. He has given that to me. It's now for me to engage in a process which will lead to my own recommendation in respect of that, which will go to the Governor-General. Right now I'm taking appropriate advice about the process that I will implement. But underpinning it all is going to be making sure that we fulfil these recommendations, because to do anything else would be for us to be judged by history. And I know that at the end of the day, what matters is the sanctity of our Defence Force and the sanctity of our nation, and the standing of Australia, and Brereton offers us that chance, and we must take it.
Deputy Prime Minister, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Kieran.